AWOL Vision makes some of the most feature-rich ultra-short throw projectors out there, and one of them just so happens to be one of my favorite projectors I've ever used, the LTV-3000 Pro. That one sits in the middle of their lineup, but what we have here today is their most affordable projector in their lineup, the LTV-2500. So the question is, what do you have to give up for the lower price, and is it actually worth it? Well, this is the review. Let's start with what you get in the box, then talk specs and features, then what my thoughts and recommendations are after using it. In the box, you'll find the power cable and projector remote, the manual and warranty paperwork, the box with the Amazon Fire Stick for smart TV features, and of course the projector itself. Externally, the 2500 looks exactly like its siblings except for some minor color differences, which is to say that it has a sleek design with a glossy finish around the edges, which fits in pretty well with most media and home theater spaces. On the back, you'll find two HDMI ports with HDMI 2 supporting EARC for lossless audio pass-through, Ethernet, USB, and optical ports. Behind the detachable flap is where you'll find the third HDMI port to connect the Fire streaming stick and another USB port to power it. Setup is pretty straightforward, and since the Fire Stick is external to the projector, it will have to be set up individually. The good news is though, you can select HDMI CEC control so that the Fire Stick can be controlled with the projector remote, which simplifies things so that you don't need both remote controls and is the optimal way of using the device. The LTV-2500 has an RGB triple laser and a peak brightness output of 2600 lumens. It supports Active 3D, Dolby Atmos, and Dolby Vision, along with HDR10 Plus for HDR standards with dynamic metadata. It displays over 1 billion colors, and that's 107% of the Rec 2020 color space, with a contrast ratio of 2500 to 1, and has a 24 frames per second film mode as well. The projector supports screen sizes from 80 inches all the way up to 150 inches for that giant big screen experience, and what I've paired it with is a 100-inch fluorescing screen from Vivid Storm, their ambient light rejecting screen, with a gain of 1. I have the blinds closed, and the first thing that you notice about the projector are the colors. They did a great job with the color rendition. There are 5 picture presets ranging from game to vivid to movie, along with a custom user setting. I tested the projector mainly in a dark room in the movie mode, and the colors had a really nice vibrancy without being oversaturated. I think that sometimes that's a hard balance to strike, where the colors pop enough but don't end up looking cartoony or unnatural like I've seen on other devices. Skin tones, I think, are the best way of measuring this, and skin tones on the LTV-2500 looked really natural. I used the Spears and Munsell benchmark this to do some standardized testing of the projector to see how it really performed in a few specific areas. The output of the disc was set all the way to 10,000 nits, so the projector has to tone map the details of the image above its native brightness output. In the tone mapping test, the projector did well in all areas except for the brightest elements, where the 2 brightest sections did not have any real definition. The shadows, however, were well defined with ample detail between the sections. The tunnel test showed more of this, where the brighter sections wasn't as defined as the other areas of the pattern. This could indicate how well the projector handles some of the details in specular highlight. So sure, they may appear bright, but may also be lacking some detail. We'll see this in another test. We can see that in this clip here with the horses, where the background detail, the houses in the background, aren't as detailed and defined as they otherwise should appear. In the Dolby Vision mode, the projector was able to produce a lot more of the highlight detail. In the shadow detail test, where the projector has to display elements with low luminance, it did much better. It produced almost all the elements on screen, which is great to see. That part is really challenging though, so no actual display gets that completely correct. In the quantization test, where we test how well the projector handles gradients, we see obvious posterization in the 8-bit sources where the gradients just aren't as smooth as they should be, except for the grayscale ones in the middle. In the 10-bit source, the gradients are definitely better than they appear in the 8-bit source, but still aren't 100% perfect. They are good though. There's some slight posterization. The grayscale in the middle is the standout performer here though. There isn't any visible posterization and the shadow gradients are smooth, and that's how we want them to look. In the motion handling test, the MEMC setting, which reduces judder and smooths out motion set to high, the projector does a really nice job of smoothing out the motion of fast moving objects. This would be great for sports. There was though some artifacting on the edges of objects, which is something we see in even some of the best projectors and TVs out there. So the AWOL doesn't really beat any other display in this instance. With the settings on low, it smooths out a lot of the judder without a lot of motion artifacting, but there is some pronounced soap opera effect though. Though there is a movie setting which does the job when you're watching movies without the added soap opera effect, which I absolutely hate, by the way. In a bright room, even with the ambient light rejecting screen, the brightness of the projector isn't really enough to drown out the ambient light coming through the windows. I mean, it's still more than legible, of course, and you can watch movies and enjoy it if you don't mind the loss in contrast, but I think this projector would be best suited for a light controlled room that's really where it shines. There are different levels of brightness output depending on your room, and I'm glad to see that there isn't a noticeable change in the fan noise when going from lowest to brightest. The fan has a low hum to it, but it's not really something you hear in regular viewing. With it placed on hardwood floors in my room though, during the quieter scenes, it's definitely audible. So whether you hear the fan noise will depend on your room, but mostly it'll depend on how quiet the scene is. I could definitely hear it on the quieter scenes. It was also about 8 to 10 feet away from me. Projector also supports 3D, which is rare in this day and age, which I wasn't really able to test out because I don't have any 3D media handy. But for those of you who do, AWOL is one of the only ultra short throw projector manufacturers still supporting active 3D. For gamers, AWOL says it supports 50 milliseconds at 4K 60 Hz, which we actually measured coming in at 80 milliseconds, so not very far off. It also supports 1080p at 120 Hz too, with a stated input lag of 8 milliseconds with turbo mode enabled, but I was not sure if my specific projector had an issue because even with that enabled, I measured the input lag at over 80 milliseconds. I wondered if that was a reading error, but I could feel the actual lack of responsiveness when gaming, so I could tell that the input lag was actually high. I'm not sure what the reason for the disparity is. Again, it could be limited to my specific unit, but let me know in the comments if you have used the 120 Hz mode and what your experience is. That said, actually being able to game on a 100-inch or larger screen is amazing. It's so immersive, and since the input lag was so low, I didn't feel like I was giving anything up to get it. Home theater gaming is definitely one of the best uses for this projector. It's awesome.
Receive my aid.
The weakest part of this projector is actually the smart platform. The included Fire TV, although it has pretty much all the popular apps you want, is kind of clunky and navigation isn't as smooth as I'd like. With some of the hangups I've experienced while navigating the menus, I'd actually get an Apple TV or a better Android streaming stick. So who is this projector for? Well, I think if you want a bright projector that ticks pretty much all the boxes, then this should definitely be on your short list. It's more suited for a dark or light controlled room, so I don't think it'll be a great fit for a living room setup. If that's the kind of setup you're interested in, then I think the brighter versions like the 3000 or even the 3500 Pro would be better options. But even with all that said, with all its features and performance, this projector is one of the best on the market right now. Amazon Prime Day is coming up as well, and AWOL has let me know that they're going to be having a big sale on the LTV-2500 Pro. So check out the link in the description to learn more about it or to get one for yourself. And if you missed it because you're watching this video after July 17, then you gotta turn on the notifications, man. Let me know what you think about AWOL projectors in the comments below and what you have in your setup. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood villain man saying be safe and peace.